From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
It was quite possibly the worst-kept political secret in Rhode Island.
I announced my candidacy for governor of the state of Rhode Island.
Providence Mayor Angel Taveras is riding a wave of popularity with sky-high approval numbers, and he's hoping to ride that wave all the way to the State House to become the first Latino governor in state history. But there may be a punishing primary to get through first, likely facing Democratic challenger General Treasurer Gina Raimondo and possibly the grandson to the late Senator Claiborne Pell, 31-year-old Clay Pell. This week on Newsmakers, we explore where the mayor of Providence stands on statewide issues. Our guest, Angel Taveras.
Good morning. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, my colleague, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Good morning, everyone. Mayor, welcome back to the program.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Right off the top, you want to be governor of Rhode Island. Why?
I want to be governor of Rhode Island because I love this state. I grew up here. I've been able to achieve the American dream by working hard, staying in school, going through our public schools from Head Start to Harvard to Georgetown Law, to then come back home to Providence, practice law, and also I've had the wonderful honor of serving as mayor of the city of Providence. I think we've made progress in the city of Providence. It's certainly not perfect, but we certainly have made a lot of progress. And I believe that we need to make more progress at the state level so that we can have a state that is a positive example around the country for education, for economic development, really a state that everyone can be very, very proud of.
We're going to ask you a lot about Providence as well as the state, but I want to ask, when you're thinking about running for governor, who's your model? Who do you think has been a successful governor in recent decades in Rhode Island?
Well, you know, that's a very good question, and someone asked me that the other day, and I went back and I thought about Governor Sondland. And I think that I'm a little quieter than he was, but the governor got things done and faced tremendous challenges, difficult times, and got things done. And every time I fly through TF Green Airport, I think of Governor Sondland. I also had a chance to meet him, and he was a very big supporter. And so I think that as I look back, I think Governor Sondland, for me, someone who got things done. Certainly, people didn't always agree with him, and something that I can appreciate as well. But we have to move forward, and I look forward to hopefully having that opportunity if the voters of Rhode Island give it to me.
So you want to be governor of Rhode Island. Does that mean mission accomplished in Providence?
No, what it means is that progress has been made. And I think that here's one thing. People have asked me a lot about that, Tim, about the city and leaving at this time. There is always more work to do in the city and in cities, period. And we're seeing that in Boston and LA and New York and Chicago, that they all had great mayors, better mayors than me.
Those cities weren't profiled in the Wall Street Journal today, though. We tape on a Friday, and that was not a very flattering picture of Providence. Finances in tough shape. Taxes have gone up twice in recent years. Car taxes up. So do you feel good leaving the city like that? Again, if you're going on to be governor, you don't feel like there aren't things you need to button up in Providence? Well,
let's be clear about where we started. I started looking at a $110 million structural deficit on a budget that would have been a little bit over 670 or so. And I made a lot of difficult decisions and made tough choices. And I started myself by cutting my pay, refusing my elected officials' pension, by having to lay off some non-union employees, by having to work with all of our unions to really get Providence back on track, and they gave concessions and made concessions to us. We also worked with our General Assembly. They were very helpful. We had to close schools. That wasn't easy, but it was necessary. We also got all of our tax-exempt institutions, including our hospitals for the first time, to also help the city in terms of a payment in lieu of taxes. Certainly taxpayers did more as well. But that's where we started. And if you look at other cities across the country, a Detroit, a San Bernardino, a Stockton, and you see what happens in bankruptcy. Out in California, they've got one of the cities out there that's in bankruptcy, their police station's open only a couple days a week. I don't think that's a positive development. So I think that what we have done is move the city forward. And I can tell you this, without any doubt, the city is in better condition than it was in 2011. And we have to continue to work together to move the city forward. And
So 2011, you described it as a Category 5 when you took office. 2012, the concerns of bankruptcy loomed large. How would you describe Providence's finances now?
Recovering. I think this is the aftermath of the storm, and we're moving forward, and we're doing everything that we can to help grow our economy, to make sure to educate our kids, to keep our residents safe. And it's been a very difficult time. And I think all the decisions I've made, I like to say they're tough, tougher, and toughest. They haven't been very many popular decisions, but they were necessary because I've seen what bankruptcy looks like. I don't think that was a good option. I think it was important to solve our problems. And I think as a leader, when you're elected as a leader, your responsibility is to lead, to make decisions, and to solve problems. And that's exactly what I've tried to do in the city of Providence.
Viewers can be forgiven, though, if they're feeling a little deja vu. 4 years ago, we had Mayor Cicilline decided to run for higher office. He ran, he won, and within a few months, you were the new mayor telling us the place was nearly bankrupt. And I'm wondering, what did you learn from what went wrong when Mayor Cicilline was distracted by being, he was busy at least, doing two different things at once, running the city and running for office? What are you going to do differently so it doesn't happen again?
Well, let's be clear about something. And we did this, we had a tour talking about the finances of the city. We talked about some of the different issues that were wrong, that led to the issues with the finances. One being cuts in state aid, another being the fiscal crisis of 2008. We also had a lot of tax-exempt property that, about half of our property is tax-exempt. We had to address, our pensions were another issue as well. Those are the things that led to it. And that's part of the Municipal Finance Review Panel. It's also part of the tour that I did. It's on our website. So we've addressed those things. I think you've written about this, Ted. You've written about how I had set certain goals, and I needed people to come to the table, and I needed to solve certain issues. And one by one, we've been doing it, and we've done it. We've done it by working with people, sitting together, sometimes very quietly, sometimes we've had a little bit more of a public fight, but that's what we've done. So I think we've addressed the fundamental issues. This was a structural deficit, and all of those things contributed to it. So we've had to cut expenses, we've had to reform our pensions, we've had to really get more help from the General Assembly, and we've had to do a lot of things.
So you're confident the next mayor won't take office and find the same sort of situation in 2015 you did in 2011?
I know that the next mayor won't take office and find the same situation. Will challenges remain? I want to be clear, yes, and challenges remain for cities all across this country, and they always will be there. And the question is, as mayor, as a leader, have you moved the ball forward? Have you made progress? Are you leaving it better? And I know that I am.
Yes or no, are tax hikes off the table next year for Providence residents?
Listen, for me, tax hikes are the absolutely positively last resort, because it's not something you want to do when you're trying to grow an economy, especially in the city of Providence. So obviously it's the absolute last resort. And we will present our budget, and we'll make it obviously transparent. We present it, and the council will debate it, but that's the last thing you want to do. And that's irrespective, obviously, of the political consequences in terms of a race. I'm saying to you that I want to see our economy grow, and that would be the last thing I would want to do.
I'd like to play something for you. You have called on General Treasurer Gina Raimondo to sign something called a People's Pledge, which would limit campaign spending by outside groups. Mm-hmm. You may well face her in a primary, and we asked her about that last week on Newsmakers, and here's what she had to say.
I'm currently being attacked by well-funded special interests, and I've called on the mayor, if he's serious, if this is more than just a political stunt, he should show some action. He should call for these special interest attacks of me to stop.
That was General Treasurer Gina Raimondo last week on Newsmakers when we asked her about the People's Pledge. She, of course, is talking about a labor-funded study by Ted Seidel, who's did the research and also blasted her in multiple articles. Is that the kind of outside influence you want to see halted, or is it fair game?
Well, let me first of all make sure that people understand what the People's Pledge is. First of all, it's not Angel Taveras' idea. Actually, Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts did it with Scott Brown in their race, and also Ed Markey did it in the primary race with Congressman Lynch. It is trying to limit the unlimited contributions from Wall Street and other special interests that exist now because of a Supreme Court decision. And for me, as a Democrat, I don't believe the problem that we have is that we have too little, we don't have enough money involved in elections. We have too much money involved, and this unlimited contributions from special interests, something that I don't think is helpful. And so I said I want to propose this as they've done, as Elizabeth Warren did it in Massachusetts, propose this for the candidates to consider. So that's the first thing. I think it's important. I think it reflects our values. The second thing, with respect to Mr. Seidel, look, Mr. Seidel, one is I'm not a person who believes in personal attacks. So I want to be very clear about that. There's no place in politics for personal attacks. Now, the question that I have is this. Mr. Seidel raised some issues, and I want you to know when he raised them months ago, what we did in response was we wrote to our investment advisor in Providence and asked those questions. It was, I think, a list of 22 questions, because I'm a fiduciary and I have a responsibility to make sure that our pension fund is doing the best it possibly can for the retirees. I think it's valid to question when fees go from $20 million to $70 million.
Okay, so let's be clear. You're okay with that? That the labor-funded study, Ted Seidel putting that out there, Gina Raimondo saying, he's talking out of both sides of his mouth if he doesn't push back at that.
Wait a second. What I'm saying to you is that I'm not okay with personal attacks on people, first of all. Okay, I have not read the full reports, over 100 pages long. Is it valid to question whether when fees go from $20 million to $70 million? I think it is valid to question why fees went from $20 million to $70 million.
Well, when that report came out, Providence had more money invested in hedge funds than Gina Raimondo did. Now you've sold down about $11 million of the hedge fund investments in Providence's pension fund. Why are you moving so quickly to change the investments when your pension fund is performing better than the state's?
Well, let me say, first of all, I think you're incorrect in terms of when his report recently came down. We've been working for months on reducing some of the hedge funds.
In April, you had about 19% and about $51 million in hedge funds. As of this week, I got the numbers. You had about $41 million down to about 14%.
Right, and his report came out, I think, a week ago. So that's why I'm saying I think the dates are a little bit different on
Well, he
that.
started writing about her in March and April on Forbes.
And as I told Tim, the first thing I did when I saw the questions was I actually asked questions of our advisor regarding that, because I think the questions are important. And it's not just Mr. Seidel. Let's put him aside for a second. The Wall Street Journal has written about this. The New York Times just recently wrote about this. Warren Buffett has talked about it. And what I've done in Providence is I've asked questions about these hedge funds and about what we should do, and can we have the same type of protection, because the idea is you want to have something that's uncorrelated to the market, so that if it goes down, it doesn't go down as much. Can we do the same thing but at the same time save money on fees? And so what I've tried to do in Providence is to continue to have good performance, and as you've pointed out, we've outperformed the state, but at the same time reduce our fees. That is our responsibility as fiduciaries. And I've gone through a process, open meetings, and with our board of investment commissioners. We have several members on the board.
We're coming up on a break. Let me ask you just briefly,
important.
do you support the 2011 pension law that Gina Raimondo wrote, or would you try to change it if you became governor?
Well, I think that it's important. I support pension reform. I think it's necessary, and that's what we've done in Providence. I've told you, I think, during the process that I thought it was important to sit down and to negotiate and try to resolve this. So I support the mediation that's going on now. I'm not a party to it, so there's no gag order with respect to that. I think that's important. But you have to make sure that whatever you agree to is fair to everyone, not just to the retirees, but also to the taxpayers, because the consequences of the law being deemed unconstitutional will be very dire for our state. So it's important, I think, to sit down to negotiate. When people sit down and talk, you never know what can be accomplished.
Before we go to break, I want to ask you a quick question. This topic was a third rail for Governor Chafee. So if you become governor, Mayor, what will it be? A holiday tree or a Christmas tree?
I've enjoyed our Christmas tree lightings at the Bank of America skating rink, and I look forward to doing the same at the State House.
Our guest this week on Newsmakers is Providence Mayor Angel Taveras. We have a lot to talk to him about when we come back. 38 Studios, education, all on the table. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me to my right, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. And our guest this week is Providence Mayor Angel Taveras, who has thrown his hat into the ring in a run for governor. So because you did that, we get to continue to ask you a lot of statewide policy questions. I have one for you. 38 Studios. Should Rhode Island pay back investors in the 38 Studios debacle?
Yeah, I've talked about that previously, Tim, and it's something that I understand how people feel about that, but I really believe that it would be very detrimental to our state if we don't do it, and in the long term. So the answer to that is yes, I do believe that we should do that.
You said in your speech, I want this campaign to be one built on ideas. We love ideas on Newsmakers, so I want to hear some. What's your analysis of why Rhode Island has struggled so much to recover from the Great Recession, more so even than other states nationally? And what do you think could be done as governor you would propose to speed up job growth in the state?
Yeah, I think that one of the things is we have an attitude that we need to change in Rhode Island. We need to realize that we can do great things. Now, that's a very amorphous subject, but I'm saying that consumer confidence matters. We know we measure it nationally. It matters here as well. So that's something that we have to work on overall. I think in terms of economic development, we have to focus first on improving education. Education is a critical component of our state and of any economic development plan. And for me, I want to focus on cradle to career, not just K through 3, but we're learning so much of what's going on in the first couple of years of life. And we've got an opportunity in Providence, thanks to Bloomberg Philanthropies, to really be a national model in terms of working in the first several years of a child's life. But the other things that we need to do as well is we need to realize that we're going to be a diverse economy. What do I mean by that? What I mean by it is that there's not going to be one sector that dominates our economy, and there's not a silver bullet that we're going to bring in. We've tried that and we've seen where that's ended up. We need to do several things. We need to focus on our infrastructure and improving our infrastructure, something we've done in Providence and we need to do locally. We need to focus on homegrown talent. If you look at some of the companies that we have, for example, if you look at a Hasbro, if you look at Alex and Ani, where did they start? Where are they from? They're from Rhode Island. So we need to focus on some of the companies that we have here and help them grow. We need to use it to take advantage of the brilliant young minds that we have, from Bryant to Brown to RISD to Providence College, and help keep them here in terms of entrepreneurs and new jobs that they can create, because small business is such an important component of that. The other thing that we need to do too, Ted, is manufacturing. Let me tell you, there's a reshoring is the concept, and that is there are some manufacturers, Caterpillar, for example, that they've begun to shift from overseas back to the United States. Given where we are, one, we have a port. We actually have two. We have Quonset and we have Proudport. We're also right in the Northeast Corridor, ability to get on put things on a rail and travel right down the East Coast. Given where we are and the people that we have here, that's a great opportunity for us to start to focus on manufacturing and what we can do to attract manufacturers here to Rhode Island. And I haven't even talked to you about some other smaller sectors of our economy that are important as well. The tourism sector is something that is extremely important. Arts and culture, extremely important. And that's how you build an economy. You build an economy that is very diverse. You build an economy that is not dependent on one sector, because this way you can have a healthier economy when one sector goes down. So we have a lot of work to do in Rhode Island, but we have the resources here. The location's fabulous. We have great schools. We have the ability to get things done here in our state, and that's what I want to do.
You've spoken out against binding arbitration for teachers a couple of years ago. Are you still against it? I
am, and I actually spoke out against it this week as well. It's not something that I think is a positive, and I've been, as you said, very public about it. My position has not changed.
All right, another position you took a stand on early on, of course you recalled you had to lay off, or you did lay off teachers at the beginning of your tenure. And there were protests at City Hall, and it terminated. Thank you. And it got very ugly. And you said you did that because you had that. You were legally obligated to make that happen before March. And you were up at the State House saying that you wanted that changed. That didn't go anywhere. You were silent on it last year. Is that not important to you anymore?
Well, I think it's important that we can change it. Let me just say one thing on the teacher terminations. I said this in 2011. I didn't handle that the best that I could, and recognized I made a mistake, and I learned from it and moved on. And I'm grateful that I was able to sit down with Steve Smith and the teachers union and work it out, and we had an agreement that was approved by them, and we've moved forward together. So that's the first thing. With respect to the notification date, I do think that needs to be changed moving forward. So it's something that I will be supportive of.
Didn't seem to be a legislative priority for you last year.
No, we had a lot of priorities, and I think given the fact that we had a 3-year teacher contract and had moved forward together, we made some good progress.
Is that contract coming up again in about a year?
Yeah, the contract is coming up, and we are working diligently to be able to reach a new agreement.
Okay. Taxes. Liberals have been pushing in the state for higher income taxes on those who make $250,000 or more. Do you support that, or would you want to keep the 2010 income tax changes in place?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, what I'd like to do is create more people who make $250,000 or more. I mean, no, I'm serious. I mean, if you expand the tax base, you have more people paying taxes, you have more revenue. And you do that without increasing tax rates. We need to grow our economy. We need to get people to work.
That's a long-term solution, though, to Ted's question. I mean, the state's hemorrhaging. I mean, you know, they need to build revenue some way or another. So in the short-term solution, is that off the table for you? Would you consider raising taxes on those who make $250,000 or more?
Well, let me just say that I think that we need to make sure that our money works well for us, and that's something that we try to do in Providence, and we were forced to do it because of the structural deficit. I think that's something we need to do at the state as well. Tax increases, absolute last resort. This is not the thing you want to do in difficult times. You want to grow the economy. I think tax increases can be a disincentive, and that's not something I want to see happen.
Tim mentioned at the top Clay Pell, grandson of late U.S. Senator Claiborne Pell. He told me this week he's seriously considering jumping into this primary for governor against you and likely Treasurer Raimondo. Have you spoken to Clay Pell about his plans? I
haven't spoken to him about his plans. I had the honor of presenting him with a citation, I think, at the Pell Lecture Series at Trinity.
You wish you'd taken it back now.
No, I look forward to presenting him with citations as governor. So, but no, look, this really is a decision he has to make with his family, and for me, my job now is to, 1, make sure to continue to run the city of Providence the best I possibly can. 2, is to meet as many people as I can outside of Providence and throughout the state, and let them know why I want to be governor, where I want to take the state, ask for their help, get their support, build a broad-based coalition, grassroots coalition, to make sure to improve our state.
Do you support the tolls on the Sakonnet River Bridge?
I do not. And you know,
how do you plan on paying for the upkeep of the state's major bridges?
Well, we will find a way to do that. But let me tell you something. I've been over the bridge, and I told some of the folks there, you know, when we were in trouble, they didn't tell us to put tolls on our roads in Providence. We need to find a way to do this effectively. But that bridge and that toll is something that I think has a negative impact on that community, and I think that there's a better way, and we'll find it.
Do you have any thoughts on what that might be? I mean, don't you think the General Assembly or the Department of Transportation, Mike Lewis, the director, might have come up with that?
Well, we have a budget that's in the billions of dollars, and for me, we will go through that budget and make sure that we are spending money the best way possible, and before this campaign is over, we'll have more specifics with respect to some of the cuts that we can make, and also how we can more effectively spend our money. I think the people deserve to know that.
Sam Howard, who writes for the liberal blog Rhode Island's Future, wrote recently, quote, "I don't see much policy-wise that differentiates the two candidates. I think Governor Raimondo would make policy choices that a Governor Taveras would also make, and vice versa." Do you agree?
No, I think campaigns are about values and people, and that's why with my announcement speech, I talked a lot about my values, where I come from. My mom, who worked second shift to raise us, being the son of immigrants, going from Head Start to Harvard, and having had the opportunity to go through our public schools, having to work hard for everything I've gotten up to this point. And so that is something I want people to know, and I'm going to fight every single day to do what I think is best for the majority of Rhode Islanders.
But I think that's Howard's point, that you will have different biographies, but then once you take office, you both will govern in pretty similar center-left Democratic fashion.
I think that through the campaign, I think people will see what the differences are between us, and we'll go from there. But I want people to know where I come from, what I've gone through to get here, and where I want to go, and where I want to take the state.
We have a little over a minute left. A deal has been made to study all the pools in the city, so that has halted the cementing over of the Davy Lopes pool. Do you regret how this played out, and did your administration make a mistake on this?
No, and let me tell you, my focus has been on serving more kids for a longer period of time. And that's what we were doing this summer. We served more kids for a longer period of time. We made sure to provide breakfast and lunch. We made sure to provide swimming lessons at the Zucolo pool, and that's something I had worked on in January of this year with the YMCA, and I want to thank the YMCA for doing that. And they did that all across the city, by the way, because I thought it was an important thing to do.
But that neighborhood didn't hear all that. All they heard was, they're going to cement over my pool.
Yeah, no, and I went door to door in the neighborhood through the process. I went back to where I used to live, Lockwood Plaza, which is a couple of blocks away, to make sure that people knew more about that. But here's the thing, Tim.
30 seconds.
Sure. As mayor and as governor, you have to make decisions that are best for everyone, and you have to look at things in a broad way. There are people who focus on one thing. You may have a vision just on the pool. I focus on what do I think is best for the whole community, and how can I serve more kids for a longer period of time.
Do you think, at 10 seconds, do you think you can get a little Red Sox celebration love to come to the city of Providence for us? You can pull some strings and
I'm gonna
get
do
the trophy down here or something?
I'm going to do everything I can to do that, and let me tell you, I will be a Red Sox fan, not mayor that day.
Now you can pronounce all the names, unlike Mayor Menino.
That's right. Providence Mayor Angel Taveras, our guest this week on Newsmakers. If you missed any of it, it's online, WPRI.com. For Ted Nisi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.